We'll call the finance meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Pat Kinney,
Here.
Blake Ellefson,
Here.
Richard Pufall is excused, Bradley Ray,
Here.
Ron Stendor.
Here.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to approval of the agenda.
Brad will make a motion to approve.
I'll make a second. This is Blake.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Anyone online or on the phone or in the room for public comment? Anyone for public comment in the room, online or the phone? Hearing none, we'll move to 4, discussion of action items. 4A, approval of Finance and Economic Development Committee meetings from July 17th.
Blake will make a motion to approve that.
Ron will second.
This is Pat. I've got a couple of things. One, Ron Cinder. Sorry, I didn't have that on. This is Pat. Ron Cinder was not mentioned in the minutes. Should he be listed as excused? Oh, you were here. Yeah. Yeah, so we'll have a motion. I'll make a motion that we add Ron to that. Was a meeting before you missed then. Okay. And then a little ways down, it says Chairman Murdoch will standing. The word be is missing there, so it should be will be standing. And then on the health insurance updates, the administrator did accurately describe what was changing, but for clarification, so we don't change the meeting, the surcharge will decrease from 30% to 15%, and it was the state premium that will increase by 11%. The administrator did not comment on how the county premium would change because of those two, so we'll leave that out of the minutes. And then one more thing, in 2 places, the airport commissioner's first name, Derek, should end with a K rather than with a C. That's in the attendance and then under airport. So with those changes, if they'll be accepted by who made the motion in the second?
I will make that motion to accept those changes as requested.
And,
Ron will second.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we'll go to 4B, financial consultant updates with Mike and Steve.
Okay, this is Mike. Steve is not, he's off today, off for a week or so. So anyway, Dan, did you get the report? I only sent it about half hour ago to you.
Um,
I emailed it to you.
yeah, I have it here, but I cannot put it online because I have to get to my other computer. I can I can
Okay.
give you share the screen with you.
Okay, how do I pull it up then? Where's the share?
I'm gonna
I
share.
don't do that. I don't do that very often.
Okay,
Sorry.
make you co-host. All right, so now you go up to share
Which is where is that?
at the bottom of the screen.
Okay. All right, I got it. And then I
And
can
highlight
pull
the
up an
page.
Excel. Yeah. How's that work?
There's nothing, there it is.
You got it?
Yep,
Okay, well, thanks. You taught me something today. Um, okay, this is a budget summary report as of July 31st. The percent of year completed, just by 7 months, 7/12, 58% of the year. So that's the sort of the standard percentage you'd be looking for. And then column H there is the actual year-to-date numbers through July. And if you just want to scroll down a little bit, then, or I can do it, right?
actually, you do it on your end.
Okay. So anyway, just a big difference from last year is your general fund revenues, 3.2 million. Last year was 4.4 million. Well, if you recall, last year you got that large check from the state, for the one-time payment of taxes that were written off from the Indian lands. So that's obviously an outlier for that year. So 3.2 million is about where you should be right now, because you get your largest payment of state shared revenues in November. So that percentage will not be your 7/12 at this point in time. And human services, you can see it actually about the same number as the year before in revenues, but there's so much lag in being reimbursed for program expenditures, and that can be up to 2 to 3 month lag in receiving those payments. County road and bridge revenues, again, there's basically that's the state aid you get from the state, and that has some variation in when they pay that too. So, it's just not consistent with the 58%. Going on down the line here a little bit. Wait a minute, I got up a little too high, I think. Let's go this way. I don't believe there's any on the non-tax levy supported funds. Nothing unusual. You can see the 25 year to date is very similar to the 24. And the highway, you can see about 1,478,000 spent year to date. That's only through May because there's various entries and allocations of payroll and machinery earnings that need to be worked through the books from the CHEM system. So there's always a lag in those months. And then this is probably more important to you on the expenditure side. General fund, 7.5 million spent year to date through 7 months. And that's, right at your 58% or so that you'd be looking for. Last year was a little bit lower, well, $1 million lower. I guess I'm not sure for any reason why this month would be higher, but there can be different fluctuations in when payments are made. Human services, 47%. So you appear to be right in line with your budget. There's obviously at any point in time, there's payables outstanding, it can vary from year to year. But you see the rest of the funds all appear to be very close. Land information is way under the prior year. I think there was a big grant, on not a normal operating grant, but a capital grant that they received in 24. That's why that was higher. And then the same with the LATCF. That's where you control the expenditures through that. In 24, it was 800,000, only 70,000 this year. I guess I don't see anything unusual. I guess bottom line, you appear to be tracking the budget fairly well at mid-year. Any questions or comments on any of that?
Any questions, comments? All right. Blake?
Not trying to be rude, but it's hard to give a lot of feedback on something that I haven't looked at a lot. Right?
Okay.
And it's not aimed at one person. I think it's aimed at everyone here, that we need to demand or at least expect that if we're going to talk about something at the meeting, that I have it in front of me at least when I go in and look at that packet. I think we've talked about it a couple times, Pat, especially at the finance committee meetings. Between sheriff stuff that we see or whatnot, and I don't know, I mean,
So in response to that, a few weeks ago, I drafted an agenda item for the executive committee meeting on a county board calendar. And if the executive committee approves that and sends it to the full board, the idea would be to create a calendar where in December, the board approves a calendar for board meetings for the following year. That way, when committees meet, they can pencil in committee dates around knowing when they need to get stuff done for a board meeting. But then the clerk's office would give us input on how far in advance of a meeting do they need the information so they can get it in the packet. So that would create a set of dates by which, and the city does this, so it's not like my bright idea. The city does this, and it works really well, is everybody knows the dates for the meetings and how far in advance things have to be there for the meeting. That way, everyone, all of us in the room, others not in the room, all would know by the date they need to get something to the clerk's office. Because right now, we haven't given anybody a date by which they have to get it to the clerk's office to get it in the packet. So we need to fix that. And I think the calendar would address that. And I say that from 8 years of experience with the city, where that worked really well as far as addressing that issue. So anything else on this? Oh, thank you, Mike.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Mike, can
And
you stop your
I know
share?
Steve is working on the budget with Sue. We're starting numbers there, so I think we're moving along on that, like usual. So,
Steve, Mike, can you stop your share, please?
can I stop it?
Yeah,
Okay, let's see here.
it's same place and share.
Let's see, how do I do that? Sorry,
Otherwise, I can,
can you just? I don't have the big screen like I had before.
that's okay, I took it
There we
over.
go. Oh, you did? Okay.
And before we move on, I want to go back to the minutes a moment. It occurs to me if I'm not mistaken, at the last finance meeting, Blake and I were here, and then the board chair had to be the third person to be, so we had a quorum for the meeting.
I think you're right, actually.
And so
Ron wasn't here.
you weren't here, you're not mentioned in the minutes at all. And the board chair had to be our third one, so we would have a quorum.
That's right.
So we'd have to go back to the minutes to modify what we just did. And that's why I was wondering if you weren't listed at all. So my assumption would be that we knew that in advance and you should be listed as excused for that meeting. You weren't here. It was me and Blake and Gary. Yeah. So I want to go back to the minutes and amend the minutes that we just approved by listing Ron as excused for that meeting. So if we could do that.
so I
Well,
admit,
Yeah, I probably Robert Rules of Order, we should ask for reconsideration. So I'll make a motion to reconsider the approval of the minutes.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye.
And then I'll make a motion to amend showing Ron as at the meeting as excused, because I believe he was excused. I'm
Right.
fairly 100% certain that I remember that now.
And I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Then let's go to well, it occurred to me, why did we have the board chair voting? It was because it was only me and Blake. Going to 4C, sources to replenish the unassigned balance. And at the last meeting, we had an agenda item on creating a fund balance policy. We've had some discussion on that, Dan and I. And the idea is that we have a certain amount of money set aside in the fund balance for things that come up and just some cushion. And so one of the really important questions there is, how do we replenish the unassigned fund balance? Because our wages and benefits come out of the general levy. Our net new construction last year was 1.15%, which means that's all we can raise the general levy. Most other years, it's around 0.5%. So wages and benefits exceed the general levy that we can raise. So with COVID and the Infrastructure Reduction Act and some other things, we've been able to build up, some reserve and do better. But those things appear to be coming to an end. And so going forward, if we look out a few years, how are we going to replenish that unassigned fund balance that we can use for different things? Which means it gives us some guidance in terms of being fiscally responsible, looking down the road a little bit. But also, as we get further in budget season, we're going to have to decide on paying for the second half of the sheriff HVAC. Do we put that on the debt levy or some or all of what remains, or do we take that further out of unassigned balance, knowing that as we drain the unassigned balance, it only gets harder in the future? And then something else to keep in mind, I asked the administrator this, for the community supported programs, can any of that go on the debt levy? And the answer is no. That also comes out of general levy dollars or things that are unassigned. So that's why this topic is important, and I'm sure it won't be the last time that we address it as we work on developing a fund balance policy. So Mike, you want to help us out here?
I know your agenda item titled sources to replenish. I mean, really the only source you have is budget surpluses. And they're not necessarily predictable, but they show up at year end and then they would fall down into fund balance. There's no you can't money from elsewhere to come in. It's got to be through your annual budgets.
So Mike, to move money that's left over from the annual budget to the unassigned fund balance, we can't do that with dollars from the debt levy, can we?
No. Well, I mean, the debt levy is earmarked for debt. So if you had debt levy left over, you could reduce the subsequent years, debt service needs or expenditures, or you could reduce the amount of money you put in debt service if you have a fund balance. In a sense, that frees up money for the general fund. But
we can't put leftover debt levy money into the unassigned fund balance, correct?
No, that is correct. Right.
So it's only leftover general levy dollars, and we know with wages and health insurance, that exceeds our net new construction by a fair bit each year, along with the community program. So what we have in reserve now is going to be hard to replace.
Yeah, and if you recall, we talked about it last month, like you're at about a 17%, at the beginning of the year. 17% of your expenditures roughly equal the unassigned fund balance. That's the highest, in the 5 years we've been here working with you, that's the highest that's been. And that's, like we said, a lot of counties, I think you looked at 15 to 25, or 20 to 30, possibly one was. So you're in that range, you're at the low end of the range. But you're certainly in reasonable shape. Like, I think we mentioned that the government finance officers, they have a very general benchmark of 16.5% or 2 months expenditures. And you exceed that right now. And then of course we did talk about the contingency fund, which is 840,000. Now that's not in the unassigned, but in a sense, it is funds that are not earmarked or committed for specific purposes right now, but it's part of your what we call your committed fund balance.
So Dan, as we go through budget season, we're going to have to decide, like the sheriff's HVAC and other things. Do we put everything that we can on debt levy to protect the unassigned balance and the contingency, et cetera? How do we balance that with knowing that we don't have a good mechanism to replace the unassigned balance?
Well, first of all, the county board already approved using half of the
Half of the
LACTF
budget.
money.
The other half.
So, well, that ultimately, I mean, this committee's gonna have to make that decision. Um, it will raise taxes if we put it on the debt levy. I do think this is probably the last year we're gonna be able to get away with that. Um, we all know a long, dark period of stagflation is coming. And I think going forward, this committee is probably going to want to limit debt levy as much as possible. So, I would do it this year, and then next year, we go back to normal levels and continue with that.
So going forward, however many years, given our net new construction rate is well below the wage increase, let alone the healthcare inflation increase, and we have increased staff a bit, some of which is getting reimbursed or saving
Right.
in one way or the other. But how do we long-term try to make ends meet by coming up with enough money?
Well, one is, we continue to lobby the state legislature for better reimbursements. So we are getting a little bit more money for the court system now, due to our lobbying. In this current biennium, we're going to get a minimum of $200,000 each year, from the state they appropriated $2 million to the 9 counties that have capitals of tribes in their counties. So we're going to get a minimum of 200,000 each of the next 2 years for that. Although the governor's veto said that the DOA can make the decision, and he specifically cited the LOC decision. So, I think that's one of the ways we can continue to do that. The other is, we need to continue promoting economic development. We need to raise that net new construction number up. We raise that up, that gives us new tax dollars to pay for all of our levy expenses. So, we continue to work with the city on that and try to do everything we can to raise net new construction.
And it's the housing, as we look at that equalized value report, where we've had a lot of our new construction. It's not necessarily a new house, but the remodeling, the upgrades that people do to a house, that all gets added in to that number.
Right. Well, and equalized value is, first of all, equalized value and levy are two different things. Equalized value is just the net sum of all the assessments in the county or in the city or whatever locality it is. And that's used to determine how you portion taxes. So just for example, just say the town of Jingles is 10% of the county equalized value. 10% of all the county taxes would be paid by the town of Jingles. And the tax bills will go out based on the individual assessments within that town. An equalized value is, yes, it is additions, it is new construction, but it's also just the cost of housing going up. So, I mean, your house goes up $100,000 in assessed value. It's because your neighborhoods and similar houses in the state have gone up by that much. Whereas taxes, we are set. Our levy is limited by what it was in 2012 plus net new construction. So, we can't, just because the property taxes go up or our assessed value goes up for our house, that doesn't mean our taxes are going up.
No, but if someone remodels their house,
Yeah, their taxes are going to go up because they made an improvement to their
right,
property.
but that counts towards the net new construction.
Yes.
So we don't necessarily see a lot of new houses up and down the road. We see some, but there is a lot of remodeling going on
Right.
in this area, and some of it's from people outside the area that come up and spend time here.
Right.
So that all helps too.
Yeah, and the big driver equalized value has been the increase in land values, property values. We are going to see in the coming years big jump in equalized value because a lot of the towns are underassessed. They don't meet the statutory requirement. Some of them are down in the 60% range, and the DOR is going to force those towns to reassess or do it for them and then bill them for it. So we will see a big jump in equalized value um, coming up. But again, that just is how taxes are apportioned. It doesn't do anything to levy actual dollars. And I think that's the big misunderstanding sometimes people have, that we're stuck at 2012 levels plus whatever net new constructions happened. That's our tax levy. Just because your property value goes up doesn't mean that our taxes are going up. We're still stuck at the same level overall. It's just your taxes went up because your assessment went up, but somebody else's went down or not as much. So
Anything else on the unassigned fund balance as far as replenishing that? Blake?
Well, I appreciate that we've been talking about this because now it means that we're in a completely different position than we were 4 years ago when I first came here, where we were just scraping at the bottom of the solvency, kind of like, hey, how much money? Zero. Okay, negative. So this is a good conversation. I think the reason we're here, and I think Steve pointed out before, and Mike, I think you can help. It was because of a one-time event with those properties out in Sanborn and how we were able to push those from basically lost taxes into actually fund balance. And that's changed our whole complexion of our balance sheet. But at the same time, now we have to try to protect that. And if we have unexpected needs of, let's say, 500,000 next year for HVAC and the sheriff's, are we going to just pull that money down from that? Or is there going to be an ability to come up with financial, I don't want to say magic, but through the county ways of financing things, can we work that through our expenses? And I think that's what we have to kind of look at for next year. I don't know that we have to decide that today, but it is going to be a pressing topic for us because we just now have a fund balance, an unassigned balance, and now here we're going to just give it all up for this HVAC, which we have to have. So I think it's a good conversation, but we don't want to just pull it all away right now.
We ready to move on to the next one then? Moving on then to D, source 2026 Highway CIP Plan.
So we did at the last meeting approve the roads portion of it. So now we have the equipment portion. Chairman Kinney asked me earlier this week, or yes, well, Sunday, how come the plow truck number hasn't changed now that we're building our own plows? Well, the simple reason is we didn't change it because the tariffs are coming. And there's a 35% tariff on goods coming from Canada, which is where a lot of auto parts are made, or partially made and shipped back and forth over the border. There's a 25% on Mexico, which is in flux. And we don't know what that final number is going to be. And there's an effective rate of 15% worldwide, with China at 35% right now, too, also in flux. So a lot of the raw materials that we get to build for any equipment are going to be impacted by tariffs. That's why that number didn't change. Is that savings from the plow truck enough to cover tariff-related expenses and all the other equipment items? To tell you the truth, I'm not quite sure it is. I think we might be under budgeted in this because I think we're underestimating how much tariffs are going to affect us. So in which case, if we are under budgeted, we have to, this committee has to decide, do you want to agree to spend more? Or are you going to say, hold off on purchasing certain items until we know what the actual costs are? Those are ways to mitigate it. But I think that's the biggest question coming up for us. I don't know, Matt, you might have some comments on your equipment.
Yeah, so, I mean, you are right, there is tariffs on some of that. This year, they weren't too substantial, but they could go up in the future, we don't know that. Some of that plow truck cost, it doesn't particularly change. We still have some of that expense. It just goes into the our new mechanics time gets capitalized into that expense of that plow truck also to pay his wage.
So the reason I asked the administrator that question was, one is it was the same number in a draft of this back on May 21st. And, back in early April, we had, this big announcement on tariffs. So I didn't know if these numbers in this budget as a whole reflected the anticipation of tariffs and inflation by the time we actually make the purchases, or if we now have to rethink that and maybe it's something different, as in potentially higher. So if we're going to leave the plow truck number the same because of concerns of tariffs and inflation, then my question to the administrator was, does it make sense to err on making the other numbers a little larger overall also? And the reason I ask that is because we can put this on the debt levy. If we authorize these purchases and the debt levy amounts that we authorize comes up short, then we could end up pulling money from our unassigned balance or other sources that we could use, to pay employees and benefits. So we don't want to, draw from that if we don't have to.
First of all, this equipment does not go on debt levy. It comes out of Matt's operating budget. So it comes out of the money the state pays him to plow the roads. They give him a machine cost for that. Pays for the state gives him a machine cost for cutting down trees. It gives him a machine cost for everything he uses. And the county pays a machine cost for everything we use to do county roads. As part of those expenses too, the state gives him a labor cost, which is how we pay the drivers to plow the roads. So these are all from Matt's budget. So, if anything's going to take a hit by tariff costs, it's going to be his equipment budget. Now, we could, again, that's why I say we could say, we have to prioritize these items and wait and see what the total costs are for the most important ones. And then we go from there when we know what that is. Or we could use debt levy money to have as a bridge. And if we don't use it for that, we apply to a debt levy item next year or something that comes up within the year. So that's where we stand.
But we also use some of this equipment for doing work for the townships, et cetera.
Right, and the towns
So-
pay Matt an equipment charge and a labor charge.
Right, and so in sum total, we don't want to come up short on what we budget.
Right.
And
Right.
so do we want to err on the side of something that we're pretty confident will cover this? Or do we want to take some risk that we end up pulling something out of, the unassigned fund balance or other sources that we can use for whatever we choose?
Well, we kind of have Matt's equipment budget, right? Any overages, and money for example, money he's earning plowing snow this winter would end up paying for any extra costs for this. Now, does that affect us next year? He might have a shortfall in that fund, and we may need to use debt levy next year if this committee decides to give him everything he's asking for. But his equipment budget covers the entire cost of the equipment, and that is money that's paid to his equipment budget from the states, the towns, and the county for working on their roads, their respective roads, I should say. So, I guess, Matt needs to be cognizant of the fact that if you approve all these amounts, he may run out of money next year for 27, which is why I said maybe you want to say you can have all these things, but you need to make sure you buy the plow truck first, the shop truck second, the trailer third, and then if you have money after that, and then you consider doing the supervisor truck.
And I'm fine
That's
with that.
what,
I'm fine with that.
and I think that way we kind of protect ourselves from tariffs and protect our county's general fund and debt levy by doing it that way. That way highway still gets the most important items that actually generate revenue to help pay for 27 and 28. And more importantly, we keep our roads clean. So
So you're suggesting a cap on this budget.
I'm suggesting that we agree to the 590. But Matt has to realize that his costs may go over and that he needs to come back to this committee after, if he's going to go over. Or actually needs to go back to highway first and then here. And that it's going to affect his 27 money request. You know, Matt can't control the tariffs and all the associated pricing, because products that are made in America are going to go up too. That's part of the point of these tariffs, to make American corporations more money and bring manufacturing here. So his costs are going to go up no matter what, whether it's foreign produced or American produced.
So this is a preliminary budget. Do you want
It's preliminary, so
to wait till later to decide if we stick with these numbers or adjust them?
I'm fine with either way. I'm fine with making a preliminary approval, because we're going to have a meeting again next month where we're going to have to start, or at least one meeting, maybe two, where we're going to have to make the final budget recommendation for publication. That has to be published in early October, because we are a once a week newspaper. We don't get the 15 days. We have to do 21 days. So, so we were going to have another meeting. I would say, I would prefer making a preliminary approval and tell Matt he needs to keep an eye on the pricing over the next month, talk to his suppliers and find out where it's going. Their best idea. They may tell him I have no clue, but at least the question's asked, and he knows that at least there's some extra juice in there for him. So I don't know of any way to go forward that doesn't protect our fund balance and debt limit, and gives him the most flexibility.
So to me, that sounds like on whatever number we end up with, whether today or later, that's going to be a cap, and we're not going to take from fund balance or unassigned to go beyond that. And whatever it is, we're not going to add to the debt levy beyond what the number in the budget is.
Right. If it goes over, it's going to come from his 27 equipment budget. And then Matt will just have to talk the DOT into giving him a lot more jobs.
Yeah. I mean, one thing, the equipment rates are set every November, and there is a inflationary number that goes into that. They used to DOT used a number from Global Insight. Last year, in discussions with them, we have it changed to taking our actual numbers of what we see in increases and what we're buying, the equipment, parts, tires, all that. So we felt the Global Insight, especially through the COVID years, was way lower than we were seeing boots on the ground inflationary numbers. So they have agreed to use that actual inflationary number starting for next year. So we're hoping that really helps us out
But that should help us out. But
somewhat.
we know that things are volatile at best.
Yeah. I mean, that doesn't help me out with this 590 number, but it could raise the rates for next year to bring in more revenue for the years in the future.
Right. And then cover any overages in the
Yes.
current one.
Yes.
Because
And-
he's still better off buying a snowplow this year than waiting until next year.
Mhm.
Because next year the cost is going to be a zillion dollars more. So we save ourselves money by buying this this year.
So what does the committee want to do with this today?
Brad will make a motion to approve the equipment portion of the highway budget. Preliminary, as a preliminary.
Is there a second?
Blake will make a second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we will go to E, policy purchasing versus leasing vehicles. The county has obviously done some leases, and we seem to have taken that, one instance at a time, and whether it makes sense or not. It occurs to me that, one, we aren't reviewing those decisions, maybe from one year to the next, it changes whether it makes sense to lease or purchase. But then the highway trucks, to me at least, seem to be kind of this in-between thing on, when I look at our overall decisions, does it make sense to lease or own? And something that really surprised me earlier this year is the forestry department was able to lease a vehicle. I know what I do with the truck when I get it in the woods. I was really surprised that they could lease a vehicle. So I thought if they can lease, why not highway? So I don't think we've explored lease versus own on the highway, what the pros and cons of that are. So that's one issue, but then the policy in general, we don't have guidelines in writing that we're following that we then review as we go through budget season to see if our choices on lease versus own are still making the most sense from year to year. Matt?
So we actually did discuss this back in 23, I believe, somewhere in 23, and we went through it. Highway's a little bit different in the fact that our equipment's charged out at a hourly rate, including our pickups, our trucks. So that hourly rate goes into what we were just talking about to pay for our equipment budget. So we're not per se taking debt levy. We're not using general levies for our equipment. We're using actual equipment usage dollars. So every hour that pickup piece of equipment, whatever it is in use, it's bringing in revenue, by the hourly rate set by the DOT, actually, the state. So when we lease a piece of equipment, all we pay is that lease cost, and that's all we can charge is that lease cost. We can't charge our hourly rate per se, which would bring in more income than that lease is costing us. So that piece of equipment, essentially, it doesn't bring any money back to our equipment budget to replace it or replace anything.
When you say the hourly rate, are you talking about the hourly rate of the employee and truck, or both, or which?
We always get the hourly rate for the employee. That's separate.
That's separate. This is
Yeah,
the use of the vehicle.
just the use of equipment. Say a truck, you get $20 an hour hourly rate for it. I'm just using it just as an example. So every hour we use that truck, we charge somebody, whether it's state, county, town, whoever we're working for, pays us for the use of that vehicle. If we lease it, we can only charge that leased amount, and that gets broke up between that. You charge that and any fuel or expense that you have with it, but you can't per se make money with that vehicle. You're not making the hourly rate that we're charging pays for the vehicle cost, the maintenance, fuel, everything, and depreciation. And that depreciation cost comes back into our budget for future purchases.
So if you own it, are you ending up at the end of the day with money ahead, whereas leasing, it's a break-even proposition?
From my understanding of what Matt just said is that lease vehicle, you don't get to add the depreciation because the lease is already accounting for that depreciation. Own vehicle, you get to add that depreciation. So that depreciation is going to then be money ahead on an owned vehicle versus a lease vehicle.
And it covers the maintenance and gas too.
Yes. I pulled up an old spreadsheet that I had run back in 23 to look at the cost of a lease versus purchase. And the purchase was considering that if we would went to a bank and borrowed the cost of this vehicle at 6%. So you come at the end of the time, and then at the end of it, you sell your vehicle. And I had this was a half-ton pickup. We paid $59,375 for. If we had a monthly payment, a yearly cost would be $13,774, compared to a yearly cost of a lease, which was $11,496. So at the end, after you have your value left in that vehicle, the total cost of the vehicle on lease was $57,484, and the cost of the purchase vehicle was $47,873. So about $10,000 savings over that 60-month period.
So is highway the only department where they would get reimbursed that way?
Yeah, highway is the only department where they get reimbursed for everything.
Okay.
Hey, Pat. Just said Matt can correct me. The difference and the reason why I think buying is the right way for the highway department is they buy a truck today, they use it for 10 years or more. The supervisor's
Okay.
truck goes down to the next person next
Mhm.
year and then down to the next person and eventually winds up on the road with the crew. So it's not like a lease where you'd say, oh, in 3 years or 4 years, too bad, get a new one. You guys are running these trucks for a long time before you get rid of them.
So I mean, that's true. So we have two tracks with our supervisor trucks. We have one track is the commissioner drives it for 2 years. It goes to the shop superintendent for 2 years and we trade it in and it still has a very good trade-in value. The other track is our superintendent gets a new pickup. He drives it for 2 years and then it goes into the crew and there it could stay for, I mean, we have vehicles, from say 2010 or something, older trucks that they stay in the fleet for some time at that point. That's the two tracks that we have with our half-ton pickups per se, or
So on the highway, it sounds like we would leave it as is unless I hear interest otherwise. And then for the finance committee as a whole, not during budget season, but maybe January or something, do we want to come back and have a policy on leasing versus owning? And this might amount to a document with the background on each department and how we review these decisions so that, one, we have a better handle on this issue overall, and then as people come and go from the board, they have something to read.
That's not a bad idea, based on, and just something from each department on usage, plan longevity, because if you're using it for 10 years, then lease probably isn't going to be the best, but if you're using it for 4 years and cycling, leasing at the current rates might be better, but with tariffs, that might change things too, so we gotta think about that as well.
And we also don't know if maybe those introductory lease rates were attractive, and then if you don't review things in a few years, like your insurance, a few years down the road, it might not be attractive, but you don't know it, so. All right,
Just to
so
save ourselves time, we can exclude highway from this discussion from now on. Cause we had them now a couple times and Matt's like, dude, I've said this and, okay, we
Yeah.
know.
And sheriff's department too.
Well, sheriffs went to lease,
Yeah, and they should stay there because of the intense pounding those trucks. Those
but
vehicles.
then every once in a while they come back and want to buy. I think that's what Pat gets confused by. So it's like, yeah, we approve you guys to go to lease. So that's what we need is a consistent thing. So outside highway, exclude them. The rest of the county, let's talk in January
Yeah,
about.
they did buy a squad for Mellon, and then that changed. We'll go to the department budgets, the forestry.
I would say if anybody has any questions.
So the forestry budget, Mike, when you were presenting earlier, that this was on like tax levy dollars or whatever the phrase was at the top. And in particular, I'm curious about the recreation officer, how that fits into the forestry budget and the funding for that.
That comes out of the sheriff's department. So the recreational officer is a deputy, and he's under the control. He or she is under the control of the sheriff. There is a DNR grant that pays for part of the funds, the position. That position is currently empty, and that's due to lack of a qualified candidate. The sheriff is still actively recruiting for that position, but it just got harder because of one deputy just resigned. So the expenses and revenue are in the sheriff's department.
But the person works with the forestry department?
The person works with the forestry department, yeah, as far as the snowmobile trails go and all that. But it's still under the direction of the sheriff.
Okay. Any questions of forestry budget? So then a motion for a preliminary approval?
The other option is you can, if there's no questions on any of them, you can make a preliminary approval at the end for all of them. If you don't want to do individual votes.
Let's go to the next one then and see if we keep moving. 5B, the veterans budget?
The only increase in this is wages. Every budget has a 2.5% wage increase,
Could
which is
you-
one step.
Could
which
you
is-
explain for the veteran service officer, you've got salaries at about 65,000, there's salaries part-time of 32, and then further down, there's the veteran service officer at about 120. Could you tell me how those numbers fit in if there's two people there?
There is two people. There's 1.5 people in veterans.
So there's three entries there. Why are there three entries and two people? That's what I don't understand.
So salaries, that's John, that's Lori. Oh, you look at the one at the bottom, Sue, the 139, 160. That's just the total of everything up top, isn't it? Right, so that's the total of everything, the 139. Of John's salary, of Lori's salary, and the vehicles, office supplies and stuff. Is that? The grand total?
Okay, so the one is adding the other two then?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Anything else on the veterans budget? Then we'll go to the treasurer. Any questions here?
The revenue portions, are guesstimates at this point. We won't get our official shared revenue number for a little bit. Was it September 15th or something? We'll get our official shared revenue number, and we will get, we can fill in the levy sheet form to get our actual number, our actual maximum levy number.
I did want to say that the descriptions that the different departments wrote in terms of what they do was really, really helpful. I've been here 5 years and trust me, I learned some new things. So that was very much appreciated. And as board members come and go, having that somewhere where we can read it and are actually going to find it and come across it, that was really helpful.
I was thinking that we put those in the packet of who is ever elected. That's part of the welcome packet is here's also what all the departments do type thing along those lines. Because yeah, I've been on the board for 4 years and I was like, that's good to know. So everybody did great. Except the county administrator. That was a little light and stuff. But other than that,
He's the work in progress. Anything else on the treasurers? All right. Next, we'll go to the Register of Deeds.
So. Again, not much change.
Any questions on the Register of Deeds? Next, we'll go to the County Administrator, County Board.
Not much change there either.
I know there's been a lot of talk about changing wages, but you say something about the new per diem rate. Did we actually vote?
It's included in there, yeah.
Did we actually vote on that? I don't,
Yeah.
maybe that was one of the 20 meetings that I've missed this year, so that we
Yeah.
actually did
We
that.
did, what was it, 3 months ago?
But they don't take effect until next term.
Right.
They don't take effect till the third Tuesday in April.
And then Lori's salary is split between the administrator and the board.
Correct. Lori's salary is split between the county board and the administrator. That's why you see 2 part-time numbers in there.
That's why I was wondering.
I mean, we can change that if we want.
No,
It's just
fine.
historically been assigned that way. But in the end, it has no bearing on the bottom line.
Moving on then to the grant administrator.
This is brand new this year, but
Does Erica envision to any of the grants that she helps in the future to get kind of like some of the overhead that would come back to help pay her salary? Is that?
Yes.
But
yes.
just not, we're not going to budget for it this year. It's still kind of new,
We don't know what the administration's doing, so
right?
so it's best, we're just not going to budget for it. And then anything that comes in goes into our surplus funds.
Moving on then to the county clerk.
There's a slight increase in this one because there's several elections next year. There's one in February, April, August, November. So she has to do more publishing and more ballots and more. Well, actually, we don't know if there's a February election yet. We don't know if there's a February election yet. We won't know until possibly January, first week in January. But that would be for the state Supreme Court. Let's see.
Any questions on the county clerk? Moving on then to land description.
Again, there's not much difference there.
Any questions or comments there?
I just had a comment. We have also totally overhauled how the office handles the sale of foreclosed delinquent tax properties, opting to use the Wisconsin surplus auction website. That
So-
ain't right.
That's what we used prior to Act 209.
Yeah, so she needs to update this land description, office goals, and just make it sure aligns with where we're at today with being able to sell those properties. Not that it matters that much, but that's changed.
Right, Sue is on that.
We ready to go then to done with land description? Ready to go to clerk of courts?
Again, some of her revenues are a guesstimate yet. We'll get official numbers from the state soon on what the court's reimbursement will be.
Any questions or comments there? Next, going to register and probate.
So, why did this one go change so much? Oh, health insurance is the big one. So, the deputy register and probate retired, a couple months ago. So that person only had a single insurance. We're budgeting a family insurance, which is the huge, big difference.
Going to the GIS then?
So, one, there's a difference in health insurance in here. The employee has elected not to take health insurance next year. So it's not budgeted.
Are we on the hook though, if a change in life event happens and we don't budget for it in February, a change of life event, and that employee says, hey, I want health insurance, we
Yeah.
still have to do it.
Does-
So is it in our best interest to not budget for health insurance?
If a qualifying event were to happen, yeah, we would be on the hook.
Right.
So if this committee wanted to add it in there, we certainly could. That would, again, then if every health insurance payment that's not made would go into uncommitted funds.
I would lean towards having every employee's health insurance covered, because if there's a qualifying life event that something were to change, that we're on the hook, and to not budget that. I mean, health insurance isn't cheap, and that's why,
Yeah.
and easily could happen a qualifying life event.
So we need to add family insurance to GIS.
Sue, go ahead.
The thing is that like we do budget for all the departments pretty much kind of based on what they're taking. But we do have where someone quits and they don't have, so we don't have that expense for several months, or, so it kind of tends to offset itself. So.
So, but in this situation, it seems like the revenues were cut because of some federal grants. And then so she decided to save the county money by cutting her health insurance.
I know it looks that way, but she's making a choice on her own. And honestly, we can't ask her why she's doing it.
Right. And the thing is too, that she used to be grant funded partially, and now I don't think it's as much.
It's about 2 years ago.
Yeah, so, so this would be less tax levy that would be versus before when she had grant funding for it.
Yeah, when we have open positions too, like we know we have positions open, we're budgeting for a family health insurance for that too. So there is a little bit of slack built into the system to cover it.
Which does make sense, is that, yeah, you're vacant position and there's gonna be turnover throughout the year of somebody that is budgeted. I just, when we were putting budget and keying it in on one department, then not have it, it's almost like, I don't know, I feel like that should be, and the way it was written, like Blake said, it almost seemed like, well, to make the budget not seem like a huge increase, I'm taking this cut. And it was concerning that it's like, well, I'm in charge of the budget and I'm trying to make it work, and here's one way I can make it work. I don't think that we need to make it work that way, is what I'm saying.
I asked the administrator the same thing after reading it. And so in general, I would say it averages out, and it does. But in this case, if the committee wants to put it in there, just so we know it's there as we go through budget season, the erring on the side of caution, I have no objections to that if someone wants to do that.
I also don't want it to go down the road where somebody says, oh, well, I'm going to jump over to my spouse's health insurance so that I can get $20,000 extra in my budget, or whatever it is too.
Right.
So there's, I don't want people playing games either.
Well, we also want, as a county, people making choices that are for them, the best for their family, right? As an employee. So if they can get better insurance and reduce the expenses of the county, absolutely. If they can get better insurance here for their family, come here, right? And I think that's what we just want to make our employees understand, is there should never be a consideration of our county budget based on your health insurance. So just making that clear to all staff and employees.
I can tell you, she does know that, and this is a choice she's making on her own.
And it is a preliminary budget, so we could add it later if that's what the committee wants to do. Leave it for now, because we can add it later. Okay.
So why don't you just add it now and then,
Yeah, we had single in there for this, for 2025. So do you want family or single added in there?
let's just put the single back
Single
in,
back.
because
Okay.
I guess the kids go on the father's
Okay.
insurance.
Okay.
We ready to go to zoning then?
The big difference here is Bruce Blakeman went on payroll as opposed to being a contracted employee. That was a decision Chairman Merchant and I talked about. And I will say Bruce is worth every penny of it. I mean, all the contractors in town love Bruce. We're getting construction done a lot faster in Ashland County because Bruce is able to work with them so well. He's turning around permits faster than neighboring counties.
Now the only thing Bruce needs to do is find out how to make people build. Just kidding.
Surprisingly, well, you're on the zoning committee. Surprisingly, there is more construction going on.
Anything else on zoning? I mean, it was a full-time employee with benefits prior to Bruce. So we're just going back to where we
Yes, it was.
were. And having been on zoning my first term and then back on zoning this one, I mean, the county has got happy people as far as that office goes. So
Mhm.
I understand that. And it's good to keep them because that was good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maintenance?
Again, there's not too much difference here. A big one is health insurance. Um, uh, our maintenance person switched to family health.
Any questions on maintenance? Then going to UW Extension.
Okay, so I should explain a little bit. Extension's is losing 3 people because of the federal budget bill. And that budget bill the cuts to SNAP. The ones to food aid don't come in until 27, but the ones to SNAP education take effect October 1st. So the UW does not have the federal funding to support SNAP education, and so they have since laid off 3 people because of that. So that office is shrinking, and the budget's going to be a little bit different for them. The whole focus of the UW is going to be different. So I guess it's more answering their narrative, but needless to say, it's not helping us.
Any questions or comments?
Oh, and the chairman also asked about hazardous waste. That has its own budget. Even though extension does it, it has its own budget. And we did budget $9,500, $9,800. We don't have the exact number yet from Northwest Regional. So that was a contingency budgeting.
Anything else on extension? Then for the department budgets as a whole, they're preliminary. Do we want to have a motion to approve all of them on a preliminary basis?
Brad will make that motion to preliminarily approve the budgets as submitted.
Blake will second that motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we'll go to funding requests from outside organizations. The first one's the Tri-County Corridor.
So they're asking for 6,000, same as last year.
Just a question, comment.
Yeah.
Ashland County's got just a small little sliver. I don't mind 6,000, but my goodness, like we're getting, if Douglas and Bayfield County, which 98% of it's in.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a mile,
Yeah,
1 mile.
1 mile, it's a beautiful mile. I live on that mile, so I'm totally okay. But it just was like, we're all pitching in the same. Like, do we not? Anyways, that's just my comment.
I just want to say though that along the corridor, we have a lot of the starting points. And so we get the benefits from the corridor, the whistle stop and the snowmobile, the UTVs that run up and down that. They sometimes stay in the side. And so we get more of the benefit than probably Bayfield County does.
And there's a lot of maintenance that goes into that 1 mile, so.
And it does get used a lot.
I know there's a lot of dust when it's dry. It sucks.
There's a lot of loud noises.
Okay, we'll move on. I'm okay.
We'll take these one at a time. Do we have a motion to approve this then, if that's what the committee chooses?
I'll make a motion to approve 6,000.
I will second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we'll go to the county fair.
This is the same as previous years. I think my first year here, we raised it from 10 to 20, but
But it was 20 before we got into tighter financial times, so it's back to the 20 it was prior to those
yeah.
cuts 5-6 years ago.
So
Any questions or comments here? Have a motion then?
I'll make another motion to approve the 20,000 for the county fair.
Ron will second it.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we'll go to the Chamber of Commerce.
So Mary's asking for 35,000, which is typically what we've been giving her. She's been doing a lot of tourism events. I mean, one of them we just mentioned earlier, the marathon. And she helped us with the Uniquely Wisconsin stuff. She is marketing for the southern part of the county.
She did call me last week and let me know that she's at a golf outing today. They've got a couple of people, so they're, short to sit through a meeting and be there. So it was the same essentially budget as last year, and I told her I wasn't aware of anything as far as the board's perspective that had changed, so, and it's preliminary, so she's out at the golf outing.
Brad will make a motion to approve this.
Blake will second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next, going to Bart.
So this is a slight increase over last year. However, I mean, BART provides a necessary service to our community. A lot of our businesses couldn't survive without it. A lot of our residents wouldn't have jobs without it.
Ron will make a motion.
Brad will second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next, check note.
No, I'm going to defer to Mr. Ellison. on this
Okay,
one.
so I'm gonna abstain, obviously, my vote, but Kelly Westland and Kelly Peterson had originally come to me asking for some input about a land trust. I had no idea they had done a significant amount in Bayfield County. Bayfield County's done a tremendous amount of seed investing for the last 5 years to come up with what they think is the most advantageous way to attract or improve their workforce housing. So they've created this funding mechanism that eventually rolled into this nonprofit that we created. It's called Check Built. It's a community land trust. So we hired, I was on the committee to bring in an executive director. We hired Alex Nelson. Alex Nelson was brought in January. He's been working closely with various funders, WIDA, Bayfield County. He's realized that Ashland County is likely going to be the market that has the most opportunity. So in doing that, he's reaching out to Ashland County to get a request in, because ultimately what these funds do is it creates a funding gap where it funds this purchase of a house by the land trust, and then ultimately a first-time home buyer or an AMI, so adjusted immediate income, would have come in and purchased that property. So we hired Alex to do what I'm doing right now, which is elevator pitch it, which I have not improved on my elevator pitch technically that well. So that's kind of what this request is that if a property is to come up for sale, there needs to be some sort of subsidy in place to bring that through into ownership. And Bayfield County has funded $100,000 for that subsidy, so that if a property comes up in Bayfield County, they can use some of those monies to buy that property, fix it up, and then resell it. And so since most of the houses that Alex is going to be looking at and hopefully putting into trust will be in Ashland County, he decided through our organization that he was going to submit this request. So that's what this request is. I think without Alex here, I guess it's difficult for me to speak too much more about it. I'm sure there's tons of questions. Pat Kinney's, I can only imagine the questions in his mind.
I think Erica has some of your answers.
Well, one of the things, Northland College closed, which a few people left the area. there may be housing available there, you know, not too far down the road. And then there's going to be this 130 to 150 unit apartment building being built. You go out by the development by Walmart now and you see a sign that says 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units available with income limitations. I personally have no idea what our housing market is going to look like, say a year or two from now, when Northland becomes whatever it's going to be next and that apartment building goes up. I do know that we have some parcels for sale that are vacant lots. And we've got some houses that the zoning committee takes when taxes aren't paid, that a few aren't in very good shape. They certainly need some work. So maybe some vacant lots and buildings that are needing a lot of work, maybe some of those things we could talk about. As far as working with them, I don't know if that would make any sense to them or be of interest to them. But as far as cash at this point, when we don't know what our housing market really looks like a year or two from now, and we know what our budget looks like and our limited ability to, you know, garner new revenue, I'd have concern on supporting this at this point.
I'm the same way as, because I'm reading this as a $200,000 request, which, wow, I mean, I don't think we have that based off of just the 2.5% increase for salary and wages that we're going to have, and only the 1.15% increase in the general levy or net new construction that we can do that. So it's just, it seems like it's a new request, and I applaud the efforts. And maybe there's other ways the county can help by, instead of auctioning off a foreclosed on property, is we donate that. I don't know what the tax implications, we can't do that. Well, that answers that question, but
At least not right away. Act 209 requires us to sell tax foreclosed properties at market rate. After, if it's been on the market for a while and nobody makes an offer, then we can accept whatever offer is given to us.
okay.
So that piece of land, vacant land that they could build a house on, we have it up for sale for $20,000. Nobody makes an offer for it after 6 months. And then at month 7, somebody offers $1,000 for it. We can accept that offer then because we attempted to sell it at market rate.
But some other avenues other than the cash, though, is, and, you know, maybe get Erica involved in helping them secure grant funding, and then maybe looking at matching when needed, when a grant comes up to do that, even from a contingency fund type ideas. Hey, they get a grant and they need match, then maybe we do something along those lines. But with this big, you know, for-profit company coming in and putting 150 units in, it's like, it's not gonna solve our problem, but it's going to be a step in the right direction. And I don't know what 200,000 is gonna do for a nonprofit in the immediate. It's not gonna be nearly as big of a dent as the 130 unit complex going up. So I'm with Pat, and I'm a little concerned about it.
Can I suggest we table it until the last finance committee meeting before budget? When we have a better idea of exactly how much money we have and whether
So
we could
just a
afford it?
clarification, this is what Bayfield County had approved for their 2026 budget. And so it was a similar ask. It's way more than what we would consider, I think, but just keeping it consistent from county to county, and their abilities are different than ours. They've had funding, they have just a different dynamic. Their health and human services isn't nearly the cost associated with what we have. So I get it. I totally think we should kick this can down the road until Alex can be here at a different meeting.
I'll put a motion to put this on the table for a future meeting.
Ron will second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next, going to the Ashland Area Development Corporation.
You're up, Carver. I said you're up.
You want me to talk?
If you want to.
I'm happy to answer any questions if you keep. I don't have anything. Okay, thanks. I don't have anything prepared. I didn't realize that I would have the opportunity today to speak. I'm thinking that you had an opportunity to read the form that we filled out. And if you have any questions about it, I'm happy to answer them.
Any questions?
I have a question. I guess, so when we look at staffing, it's not really clear. Has the staffing changed now that kind of the large $2 million grant is kind of winding itself down, or is
Yes.
ultimately, what is the amount of the staff that'll be there,
How many staff?
will be remaining after kind of the whole, like, what's the go forward kind of with what you have budgeted and what's kind of,
Mhm. We have 4.5 staff members right now. We're one staff member short for the amount of demand that we have from Ashland County entrepreneurs right now.
When you're helping businesses, do you help with websites, online presence?
We do not have that technical skill. What we do is we apply for grants that allow the entrepreneur to be able to work with a professional marketer, and then we pay the professional marketer. When we have the grant opportunity, they're not always available to us. The grant that we're just finishing up with, the Fundiversity grant, we've spent about $100,000 of that grant so far, helping entrepreneurs get websites built, get their branding done, help them work with lawyers to register their businesses, do operating agreements, legal documents, and then also working with an accountant or a bookkeeper to get their initial bookkeeping set up.
When I moved here in 98, my neighbor was a city finance director, and it was Larson picture frame in there at the time. And my neighbor explained why Larson Jewel was going to be moved to the industrial park they created, and why local, state, and federal money went into repurposing that building. The basic idea was to support economic development and light industry, that sort of thing in particular. The world has changed, since the late 90s, obviously, as far as the kind of industry and stuff that we would have, in a building like that at this era. But the idea was that the ADC would be given the building, the upgrades to the building to make it what it was, and contributions for a period of time to get on their feet. And that money all went in there, getting to be a few decades ago. So that puts you in a position for rental income. So I looked at your 990 tax form online. In 2022, you had 251,000 in rent. 2023, 300,000. And now the Burke Center has moved in, so I would assume that going forward next year, you're going to have more than that in rent. When I looked at revenue less expenses in 2022, you added 188,000, and that's good. That's what it should be. You've got good rent. You do some grants, you bring in administrative fees from that. And so you added 188,000 to your savings, which is good. That's the way it should be in providing services. 2023, you added another 475,000 to your reserves. And at the end of 2023, you were close to $1.5 million in reserves. So you clearly have the capacity to match a grant if a grant opportunity comes up, with the money that you have on hand. If the county were to provide money to match a grant, it would make sense for the county to also want the administrative fees, because if the county is going to provide the match, we would want the administrative fees. But there's no guarantee of getting grants. There never is, you know, unless they're non-competitive. So I think the ADC is doing what it's supposed to be doing, and what was envisioned. Your 990s indicate that you have a track record of success at using revenue from rents and grant sources and other funding sources to cover the cost for the building, pay your bills, and add to your reserves. That's what was envisioned. That's what's going on. And I don't see why the county, with all of our responsibilities and limited ability to collect revenue, in particular the general levy, which we're limited to 1.15%, which is not enough for pay and benefits, let alone other things. So I really don't think you need the money from the county because you're doing what you should be doing and it's successful. When I looked at the level of economic development support, it's typically about one person for 15,000 residents. So it would mean about one person per Ashland County. And understand you got a building to take care of and, you know, say 1.5 or so. Dale Cup just used to say you'd spend half his time taking care of the building. So 1.5 would kind of cover the building and what's average elsewhere. The programming that you've been doing, we've got a technical college here that has a continuing ed program. The campus administrators on your board has been about 15 years. He's your vice chair right now. Having worked at the tech school, including having taught continuing ed in the construction essential course, I did the math portion in your building. I'm very familiar with how continuing ed works at the tech school. I think about Act 10 and how taxpayers said we want to limit to local units of government raising taxes. We want you to be more efficient. We don't want redundancies. We want you to work together. I seriously think you need to get the tech school to develop a continuing ed program that serves the needs of the ADC and the business community. They're charged with that mission. It's part of what they're supposed to do, and they should do it. They have the capacity to do that. You should be able to design a program you want on, say, marketing, basic accounting, developing business plans, and they can offer continuing ed courses. It takes some effort to sit down and develop what you want, and then for that to get marketed through the tech school. But they have that as part of their mission, and they should do that, and we shouldn't really be duplicating that with county tax dollars when we're also paying money to them. And trust me, I work there. I'm familiar with the place, and I know they can do this. And I also know that, well, darn it, you know, they get paid enough to do that too. And so part of what you're doing is duplicating something. And so because you have someone on your board that can help you, I think you should work at getting that done. So, but I'm also aware that Bayfield County no longer has their economic development office. They chose not to do that and go in that direction. They have a grant writer, and then they support things as they see fit. That's a choice that that county make, even though they have more resources, and that's mostly because they have more lake properties with tax base, and they have about and they have more forest land and timber revenue. So we make different choices, but I think you're to be congratulated on doing well, and you have a track record of that lately. And I really don't think you need the money for the county. When we look at our needs on the county, especially when we look down the road a few years, I mean, honestly, we really don't know how we're going to make ends meet a few years down the road and keep the level of staffing we have. And we have state mandates on the things that we have to do. I personally really don't know 2-3 years down the road how we do that. So, you know, I'm bearing that in mind. I'm also bearing in mind that if you look like at the equalized value tables that came out, commercial real estate in the city of Ashland took a significant jump. Reassessed, it means it's much more than the county as a whole. Commercial real estate, when they get their bills this year, their eyebrows will get raised. So as we sit here as a committee, we also have to realize, and we do, there's limits to how much we want to raise taxes in the future too. And we've had 2 failed referendums, about 60-40. And we have other referendum, school and the Vaughn Library, that passed. So we know that people have limits on how much taxes they're willing and able to pay. So I'm just looking at the big picture, all things being equal, of where we're at. And we've invested in the ADC, as a city and a county since the late 90s. In a sense, this is our return on investment, that you're set up, you're doing well, you've got good rent and capacity to do things. So, I look at it that way. You're doing what you should be doing, and it's successful, according to your 990s. So our 50,000 compared to your nearly 1.5 million is, it's nice to get it. Doesn't hurt to ask. But we obviously have limited resources.
May I speak?
Yeah, I just want to point out that 990s are available on ProPublica's website for every nonprofit in the country. ProPublica publishes the 990s.
Sure. Is this an appropriate time for me to talk? Or, okay. So I can appreciate how difficult the job is of the committee and the entire board. I mean, we're not a wealthy county, and there's really difficult decisions that need to be made on almost a daily basis, it seems, when it comes to governing our areas in these remote rural areas. I'm well aware of that, and I don't envy your jobs at all, because they sound really, really tough. There's a lot of decisions to be made. I just jotted down a few notes when you were speaking, Pat. As far as the rent coming in, yes, the Burke Center moved out. Ashland Aging moved in. Spark moved out of a huge chunk of our area. The Job Center moved out of about 6,000 square feet, which is a huge part of a 60,000 square foot building. But we're used to that happening. We're always having entrepreneurs, either startups or established businesses or nonprofits, moving in and out of our building on a monthly basis. It's changing. And we try to keep our occupancy at 90% if we can, or above that when we can. We can't always do that. And we're walking always a fine line, because we don't want to compete with landlords that are in downtown Ashland, right? That's not what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be complementing and filling a gap. And a lot of times we can do that because we can be very flexible in how we build out our spaces in our building. Somebody needs to put in a kiln, somebody needs to put in a bathroom, somebody needs to put in a sink. We try to expand that. And we also try to allow entrepreneurs, like the first year, they might only need 100 square foot space. Second year, they might need a 200 square foot space as they start to expand. So we try to be flexible. And that's one thing that we can do fairly nimbly that some landlords do not have the ability to do. The building pays for itself with the rent. And it also puts money back into my general budget to pay for other things. It does not provide enough money for us to be able to provide economic development for all of Ashland County. But it does make us a lot more stable than other nonprofits in the area that don't have a source of revenue, unfortunately. But in order for nonprofits to be able to bring in revenue to sell things, it also has to align with their mission. And that can be very, very difficult, a real hard challenge for other nonprofits to do. We're one of the few nonprofits in the area that does have a source of revenue. And by the city making that arrangement 25 years ago, and having that building, buying the building from Larson Jewell and then selling the building to AADC, it afforded us an opportunity that most other counties in Northwest Wisconsin don't have. There is nothing like AADC in any of the other counties. And in fact, when we look at the counties around us, whether it's Rusk County, Price County, most of these counties not only don't have an agency, they don't have an economic development person working for the county. Some have a part-time person working for the city. Iron County, Ashland County, Bayfield County in 2025 all zeroed out their economic development line, or their budget support for an economic development agency or an employee. We don't have any money coming from those three counties, which kind of exacerbates the issue in northwestern Wisconsin. And it's a real concern of mine. I was down at the Governor's Council this week, and I say this at every chance I get. We are losing our voices for economic development and small business support in northwestern Wisconsin because of that. That means we don't have a voice to let people know how different it is to do business in northwestern Wisconsin and in the rural areas opposed to Dane County and Milwaukee. It means we don't have people to write grants to bring external money into our counties, and we don't have people to administer those grants. And that's one of the real benefits of having an agency like AADC in the area. Bayfield County Economic Development and Washburn County, they did something different this year. They're trying something different. They have signed contracts with an organization, a nonprofit from southeastern Minnesota called CEDA, Community Economic Development Association. And CEDA has a person that gives them 2 days a week, 1 day remote, 1 day in the county. And that's what they have providing their small business support. They're 501 C6s, they're not threes. AADC is a C3, which gives us abilities to write and be eligible for grants that the C6s sometimes don't have. They're left out of the eligibility, off the eligibility list. It also means that as a 501c6, they can have memberships from businesses in the area, and they do. So they get their revenue that way. C6s aren't able to do that. We don't get any revenue from businesses. And so we become less promotional and a lot more educational. We're the ones that are doing the coaching. We're the ones that are doing the classes. We are not promoting businesses. I have a hard time making that connection in saying that we're duplicating what Northwood Tech is doing because of the one-on-one business coaching that we're doing right now and the availability that we have to respond to provide mentorship programs, to provide to anybody that walks in our door at any time during the day. I see that. I think I see this in a completely different approach than what you and Pat and maybe what some of the other county board supervisors see this in. AADC is not asking for money to support our organization. We're not. We're providing programming to businesses in Ashland County. And we're hoping that the county, I'm going to precede this by saying I understand that we don't have a lot of money to give out, right? If we are able to afford that, what I would hope is that the county would be able to take some of the money that's available and invest it in the support of Ashland County businesses. And you can do this in a couple of different ways. Well, your first option is not to do it at all, right? Because there are counties that do that. To not either be able to or be willing to take some of the county money and invest it in supporting small businesses and small business growth. That's an option. Just don't do it. Zero it out again. Your second option is to hire somebody. Take that $50,000 or whatever you feel like you have or could afford, if you can afford anything, and hire somebody and have them work for Ashland County and have them do that type of work. We're at this wonderful crossroads right now in Ashland County where we're taking off with small business growth, and we want to support that and give them every reason to succeed. Your third option is to, if you have the money, to invest it into a nonprofit like AADC that's already structured, already set up, that already has proven success, and let us escalate the amount of support that we give to small businesses into nonprofits right now so that they can become stronger in the coming years. And I think maybe that's an oversimplification, but in my mind, that's kind of how I think about it. You have options. It might be bridled by the fact that we don't have a lot of money in the county. I understand that. You might just have your hands tied completely doing that. But so my approach is I'm hoping that Ashland County, the government, this board wants to invest in small business growth, expansion, and stability. And you choose to take that money and invest it in Ashland Area Development Corporation that already has this set up to be able to make it happen. I don't need the money to make sure that ADC survives. I don't need it for that. We're fairly stable. We're fairly stable. But the money that any money that that the government would contribute to ADC goes out into the businesses. That's where it's going. It's not to stabilize the building. The rent pays for the building. I hope that helps.
Well, I understand where you're coming from. You have the rent and it exceeds your expenses. It gives you capacity to do what you do, and that's all the way it was envisioned, and so that's good. Those contributions from the city and the county early on were never intended to be permanent. But what happens is elected officials come and go, and people come and go in the community and all that. And somehow those contributions got envisioned as, well, let's just keep doing this. But that wasn't the way it was intended. You're to a point where you've got nearly $1.5 million there. You can certainly keep doing what you're doing. You've got 4.5 people now. One person for 15,000, you got a building, and Dale would say half the time on the building, so 1.5. So you've got more staff that way. When I was at the tech school, there was a time, and this might not be something the current administrator remembers or was aware of, but there was a collaboration where the business teacher was reviewing business plans and working with the ADC. It's not like some of this hasn't been done before, but they've got a continuing ed program. And what they've kind of gravitated towards is if a business wants a certain kind of certificate, they'll design that. But you can also, through continuing ed, say, here's what we want, here's what works. And if I were to give you one piece of advice on the conversation with the tech school is insist on you getting what you want and not something they want that they think then they can enroll somebody later into one of their programs at the tech school. They like to do that, thinking, here's a potential student for the tech school later on. You say, no, this is what I need. I need business plans, I need marketing, I need website design. That's what you want, those core things that you want. And then they find instructors to teach those courses that could be in your space and do that sort of thing. But trust me, that's part of their mission, but you've got to insist on getting what you want and tell them, I don't care about if they go to your campus later on. And I stress that because when I taught that math course for the construction essential, we're talking people coming in with fairly low math skills. Well, they insisted on a math course that they could then go to the machine tool program or the 2-year program in construction at Rice Lake. I was told what I had to teach, no ifs, ands, and buts. Okay, if that's what you want me to do, fine. Well, after one semester, it was so challenging for the students and went over so unpopularly that a dean out of Richmond, who had no awareness of what they were actually doing on that decision, said to me, it sounds like it was a good course to have and whatever. And I told her, I said, if we don't change the math course to something that me and another math teacher at Rice Lake thinks makes sense for this program, because he was teaching a version of it too, if we don't change the math course to what we think makes sense for this program, for the actual students you have, it was continuing ed. So I could say, no, I said, I'll never teach that course again. And of course, they had nobody else to fill it because I was the only math person. So we changed it to what made sense. So you got to insist on getting what you want, not what they want, so they transfer students in. They absolutely should be doing that. They can do it. And years ago, they actually used to do a lot of that sort of stuff, but it kind of predates the person there now. You should get that. And if you want me to work with you on trying to insist on getting that and making it work, get a hold of me.
Okay. I'd also like to talk to you about the 1.5 million you say that we have on our accounts. It's important to acknowledge that the DBA grant that we have right now was a 3-year grant, and the money started coming in 2023. The big chunks of money coming to us that we have been granting to the businesses for the last 3 years. So the bulk of the grant came to us early, and now we're spending it down. So when we look at our budget the last 3 years, we're looking at it differently. We're not looking at it year by year because we got a big chunk of revenue that came in all of a sudden. And now we're at the end of the grant and the big chunk of money has been spent. So now we're below. Now we're below where we would be, but we don't look at it that way because that's just this year. We're spending down the very last bit of that grant. So to say that we have $1.5 million in savings is not correct. That includes grant monies that we get in that go back out again. It is a little bit of an illusion there.
A year ago, we had 139,000 in unassigned fund balance. We had some other monies that we could use for some stuff, but earlier in the meeting, when we talked about unassigned fund balance, we were looking at how can we replace that? And we really don't have a way other than the general levy. This year, we can raise general levy 1.15%. We can put what we want on the debt levy, but it's a general levy that pays for employees and for community programs. So a few years from now, when some of these other pots that we came across the last few years with COVID and the Inflation Reduction Action Bill, when those monies are allocated and gone, we don't have a plan for what we do. So for the moment, my personal take is the best we can do is be as careful as we can, as long as we can, until we figure out how to get through that. I mean, the only obvious answer at some point is a referendum is going to have to pass in Ashland County to continue to operate. But we know we have two that failed 60-40. So
yeah, it's going to be tough for you all to try to figure out like where do you put this money, and AADC, the money that comes to us from the county goes back out to building these businesses up that in theory is putting money back into the tax coffers, right? They're paying property tax, they're paying wages. It's money that's circulating around the community. So I'm not an economist at that level. I can't tell you what the economic impact is if you were able to contribute $50,000 to programming to small businesses in Ashland County, how much that would be multiplied when all is said and done. I can't do the math on that, but that is in theory what we're trying to do here is build businesses that can pay taxes that will help increase the revenue to Ashland County as a government.
yeah,
Well, can I just jump in one,
sure.
ask a question, Carver?
Sure.
I know you don't want to promote businesses as you're trying just to help in the back end. And, you know, it's Chamber of Commerce that's going to help promote those.
Correct.
But maybe if we saw a list of the last 5-10 years of the businesses that have received support, so that how many of them are actually getting to operation, you know, and it's not just, you know, a school project that they're coming in and getting support and they're saying they're going to start a business. You know, I've talked about starting businesses and done things for it, but I've never actually started a business. And so I could have gotten assistance and not started a business, but how much, you know, those are doing that, you know, like specific businesses that are around the county that have benefited and are employing people and helping the economic development of the area. Maybe that would help.
Right.
Because your mission, like Pat's saying, your mission is great and you are successful, but we're us as a county board don't want to stop economic development. That's what we need. We were talking about net new construction. So you can show us some businesses that you help build something here. It's going to be something that we can start talking about.
So
And so that might help me at least on figuring out a path forward. Is having a list of that if you're willing to do that. But I would like to make a motion to table this and maybe get some more information and discuss it at a future meeting.
Is there a second to the motion to table?
Ron will second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
am I allowed to say anything after this? What's that? Oh. Okay.
Ashland Aging Unit?
Those are almost fighting words, except she's so darn cute, I just got a smile. Except my daughter was in the hospital for a week afterwards, but so two too. I can show pictures afterwards. For some reason, my phone is full of baby pictures now. Um,
So we know you've had an eventful year.
thank you for the understatement of the year.
So I don't think you need to go through your eventful year. I think everyone in this room is well aware of that. So you could hit some highlights that we might not know about from what you wrote or we're all pretty aware of, but
Otherwise, I could go. I got just a couple questions.
Yeah, go ahead and shoot questions because that's going to be easier because there's so much.
Right. And like Pat said, is yes, things are crazy, and I know that. And I realize that older American Act mandates this. And then, but how much is mandated? You say that you offer 5 meals a week. Is 5 meals a week mandated?
No, we can give people less, and actually with the prices increasing, we're actually looking at having to make a hierarchy of people, a wait list. Because right now our meals, the hot meals that we're putting out are $8.60 a piece. Our Chartwell's price, the top one was $6.05, and our bulk food was it's hard to remember the old numbers.
Much cheaper, though.
13, much cheaper.
Right.
Just the 3 hot meals a week is $2,300 more a month for us. And yeah, ask your question because I can get into this.
Yeah,
the thing.
so it's not 5 meals a week have to go, and it says to adults age 60 or older. You talked about a wait list, so it's obviously not everyone over 60 because you can make a wait list. So what is actually required? Like is it 1 meal a week to 10% of the 60-year-olds, or is it some economic some threshold of income? Like I don't know. My mom recently moved into a home, and that's the best thing that's ever happened to me.
Yeah.
Her moving it into a home because I don't have to worry about falling or anything like that. It's truly independent living. And that's maybe what we need a development corporation to do, is get an independent living senior place that has the capacity for that to move in, because we have a ton of people that are 60 or older and need that. And so I know this is a good program. I'm just looking at, like, yes, we want to do the best, but is there any way that we can narrow the focus? And maybe not all hot meals, maybe not everybody, are the congregate meals. But I like the congregate meals. I think that's actually better than the home delivery. Are the congregate meals required, or is that added? And so if you can speak to kind of what's required, I guess.
So first thing is not all this money is some of it is match for the other programs that are listed in that part. Up until, let's see, I've been there 3 years, so we haven't been keeping pace with what the expenses are. So I have been regularly asking for a little bit more in order just to keep the basics going. Now, the Older Aging Act says we are supposed to provide congregate meals 5 times a week. Now, that can be like Bayfield County does. They have one in Barnes one day and one in, so it's 5 times a week, but it's all over the county. When it comes to the congregate meals are great. Those are the people that are mobile, have less health problems, are less, use less of the services from the county and the city on a regular basis. Our home delivered folks are the ones that are priority. These are the people that cannot get out of the house. We do a 3-page evaluation, and it's about to get another page longer in order to make sure that people meet certain requirements of basically these people go to the doctor and come back. That's mostly what their stuff is. We try to have that meal there because these are the people that are the most frail in our community. And those are always the meals that cost more. So
But can the aging unit use some of these funds to get these people into a central location where we don't have to drive all over the county? If the meals could be served every day, 3 meals a day, they can get them to be close to healthcare. Like, I mean, I know we got like assisted living facilities, but can we figure out a way instead of spaced across the whole county to bring them
to
together?
fix the problem, yeah. That's not what the funding I get from the state and federal is for.
Right.
Am I working on some kind of housing kind of thing? Yeah, but I can't in the middle of this.
Right. Well, yeah.
Now I've been called it, it's a wonderful day for a new opportunity, because if I keep calling it challenge, it just gets negative in my head and I don't sleep. It's great to think of those things like those assisted living and such, but we already have the couple nursing homes here can't fill their beds because they don't have workers. Sometimes they're using, just to get their food done. Sometimes they're using some of their CNAs to help with that. So we have just my hardest problem with any of that. And all we've done as the history of the program is get bulk food in those congregate sites and dish it up. We weren't really cooking anything. I can't keep anybody for the wages that we offer and that we can afford in order to do those. So, like I said, on that other end, I love nonprofits. They do things sometimes at a little more face-to-face contact, kind of build a relationship, because sometimes they can come in and sit and talk with us a little more often than what some of the county can. Sometimes we're always doing reactive things. So I'm trying to plan on the proactive side. I just have to get through this
Reactive moment. Yes.
because not only did I start out with, I had a great plan written up. So 2 state agencies, I had a great plan written up. The nonprofit state agency above us had approved it. Bureau of Aging and Disability Resources asked me if I could phase it in over 3 years. Oops, no. No. So having a good plan didn't make any difference with them. What they picked was the more staff intensive piece for us to do, which is dragging. I've got 5 people in my office. One helps with a little bit of everything, but mostly does transportation. One does mostly the home delivered stuff. One does just the data entry because it is so data heavy for this stuff. It's ridiculous. And I have one person that comes in on one day that she just kind of is like our backup cleanup crew. So she helps with all the little details in between. I'm in operations. Before me, nobody was helped into operations. I have jumped in the bus. I've jumped in the kitchen. I've done. So I figure if you don't understand what's going on, you can't really make a lot of decisions about it. But I've streamlined so many things and everything. It's just with this change, I have had businesses that have been excited about helping us with congregate, which that gets our price back down in that range. And then it not work out. Or we talk about it, we go through paperwork, I show them how the process is laid out, and I get ghosted. Schools, I have not had a good response from the school in town. Our Glidden one and the Butternut one, I don't know how that's gonna go with Butternut, but our Glidden one is still a possibility. They need to get back into school so we can talk about some of that. Right now, the thing I've got is the only options I had left. And it's costing us more and we're feeding less people. If I can get a 2-day a week at this point for congregate, the state is happy. So I'm just working on that stuff and trying to plug out of the way while doing all the other reports for transportation and stuff at the same time. But no, I don't like being on the emergency side of everything. Some of that is what we're geared up for, but there's a longer term plan that our board has been working on with some funders that if we can make it through this skiff, we can turn some of this stuff around and not have to ask for a bunch more, just for some of the minimums that they require from the county piece. This was not out of left field, I guess. I'd been working on it for over a year. It's just that they said they were going to stay for 5 years.
I actually have to say, I'm surprised the request was only 10% more. Just based off of knowing what's going on, so.
I just, because so much of our operations has changed.
Right.
I've got some less staff, I've got less rent going out in sites and stuff. If we can switch them over to restaurants, that saves me in rental costs. I mean, I'm not trying to blow out a budget here. The $860 is hard for me to choke every time I look at that bill. They're good meals and they're great, but I have a contract with Bayfield County until the end of January, and I'm still looking for other options. I'm trying to work with one of the tribal entities right now because they do their own cooking. They just have to get in their place too. And the thing is they have the same problems with those kind of hirings with like kitchen help. The kitchen help is the hardest thing to find.
And it's not just, it's not everybody, I think, is having trouble
and the
finding people.
restaurants too.
And I would argue one of the reasons that everybody's having trouble finding is there's no housing here. I mean,
A little bit.
People spend months trying to find a place to live after they've accepted a job up here and are, 2 weeks before you're about ready to start, they're like, I think I finally found a spot. And you're like, I hope so. It was 3 months ago I offered you a job. So hopefully this 130 unit helps, but there's a lot more problems than just old people spread around that need meals. I mean, I don't have kids, so I'm sure I'm going to be needing somebody to bring me a meal when I'm 60. So I want a program like that. But Pat says, no, you're right. I won't even be alive at 60, but
without the stress.
But is there a way to reduce cost and still offer what's required as we're looking at budgets and talking about that there's this 2.5% increase for salary wages, when only net new construction is 1.15%. How can we make sure that we're staying within the overall budget if there's ways we can reduce each of these? So that's all I'm questioning, is if there's any way we could reduce this.
Yeah, there's no specific set amount. It's just with our population of people over 60 slowly ticking up for the next so many years. Bayfield County beats us. They're going to be 50% by the time we hit 2030, 2035, somewhere around there, ballpark, depending on, birth deaths, blah, 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 all that stuff. But we're right behind them. And it's just that we don't have a lot of options. So that's been my goal, is to get it to that spot where we're doing that directive. And we've just been able to do the 5 days a week for the lunches and for the home delivered. And then in the outlying, it's not that they don't get 5 meals. It's just they get them a little compressed. They get them 2 meals on Monday, 2 meals on Thursday, 1 meal on Wednesday, so it covers that time. The thing is what I'm seeing is that there's a higher amount of need. So I'm doing the best to balance that while making sure we're not having people starving, because that's the people that we're seeing the most.
Blake?
So the bank, I delivered today, last Thursday, and I see it. The need is growing. I think the costs have year over year continued to spiral though. And I don't know that the quality's been better. It's actually probably worse now than when Chartwell's, I think, just based on what I see in the stuff that I'm delivering, I think Chartwell's was probably higher quality, cheaper. They were subsidizing.
Opposite of our.
And again, I'm not eating the meals,
Yeah.
just from a
Yeah.
presentation standpoint. So it sounds like you have been under a significant amount of pressure. There's been a lot of southern challenges in Mellon, the southern part of the county. At what point, as a county, what do we do, right? If it's always challenging, and again, I'm just asking, because that's the question that we need some resolutions at some point. Otherwise, it's like, what do we do as a county? Do we continue to let escalation pricing and no congregate meals, which is a requirement? And again, I'm saying your challenges are real. I'm not trying to downplay that. But at some point, costs can't go up and forever, and there has to be some level of, I don't want to say accountability, but like some service expectations. And so it's been a lot. It's been challenging. I get it. Costs have been, Chartwell's leaving, the growing number of needs, but can we charge more? Can we raise, so again, that's my thing right now is what options does the county have if this doesn't ever come under control?
I don't think we have any good options.
And that's because it's a state mandate.
Yeah, if
And
the
it's a-
county
it's
takes
a
it
federal
back in,
mandate.
it's gonna be 3 times as much with a third of the service. It's just,
So from a budget perspective, given all the unknowns, given how eventful your year was, and we don't know what next year looks like necessarily, the 10% is understandable. The one thing I would like to talk about in the budget, I'm supportive of approving this, but what I'd like to talk about sooner than later is, and I don't know the answer to this, but on the transportation, you get about 80,000. And then we kick in about 17. I would like to explore if working with BART and or any other transportation organization in the area or region
we already do.
would somehow, if there's any way we can make that more efficient, cost-wise, or maybe better service than we do. I don't know if changing anything will improve anything, but a conversation for another day rather than details.
We already work with BART, and for some reason before me, they'd kind of divested and not been involved with them because I have brought some of the costs down and made things more efficient. BART already, we are technically a contractor for BART, so you have to have a specific paratransit program, and it is like, the stuff that Pat runs is one beast. The stuff that I'm doing is a whole nother beast. But we have consolidated with our dispatch program. So we do the same dispatch program as BART now. So we're more efficient. We pick up more people. It kind of does an intuitive thing. So if you have people that are getting picked up at the same time, it gives the bus driver a certain route. So we pick up more people all at the same time now. And we have cut costs in paper and radios and things like that.
Do you have your own dispatcher?
That's what that one guy does, is he does dispatch, and I can do a little bit of dispatch, and it's all on the computer. So, but it's some, and I do have one person that can back up a little
And you have a
bit.
full-time bus driver
No, we do not have full-time bus drivers. I have
or
I have
multiple
two,
part-time or?
they're all part-time. I've got one guy that works 1 day a week and he backs up for the other two. And then I've got one that works 3 days a week and one that works 2, and then they switch the next week. So it's a rotating schedule.
So I would like to understand the transportation bit in more detail, but today's not the day, so.
Yeah.
um, From a finance committee standpoint, we need to make a decision on the budget request. And
if-
so
yeah,
are
just
we ready for?
One more thing. The cost, I mean, besides the fact that these meals have jumped, the costs for the agency haven't spiraled.
Yeah.
I just asked, like, when I first got there, because here's the thing. I'm only there because they weren't going to be able to stay open in order to do the services, because for the amount that the director gets paid, they didn't have any applicants. I'm a little bit different. I'm there to help out and keep this going. I haven't taken anything extra because that's not why I'm there. I'm trying, I've had to go through, stabilize the agency, do some efficiencies and get it so it has something regular. I mean, there was not even like a list of director stuff. I have had to figure out the whole thing myself. There was there was nothing. I had a little bit of training from GUAR, the state agency above me. So, but otherwise I asked for a few just kind of catch up advances. So it was like 15% 2 years in a row. And then last year I asked for that little extra with the transportation, but thank you, Pat, for saying, hey, if you leave it open to use it for food, I don't know where you got the sage advice from, but it worked out for this year. So, because that's where that piece is into the food. But just because we have to be able to, once I can get some congregate sites, my pricing is coming right back in that same range as what Chartwell's was. That amount, that change in the congregate program provides longer hours for people to get meals, options. Instead of just getting, here's your meal, they get like before the breakwater thing stopped, there was 7 or 8 options on that menu. Once I can get the butternut one up, there's 13 things on the menu. So people get to pick breakfasts or lunches, and they get to go there between 9 and 2. And so if they have a doctor's appointment, which is usually why somebody would miss a meal, they have options now. Every place else in the state, there are these options. It just happens that, well, at least so far, the ones that I'm working with to get some of the details out of the way so we can get the state to approve it, the pricing is coming back in the old spot. It's just, there's this bump. That's why I went for exactly what we needed at this time. If it's not needed next year, it's a whole different discussion.
I think what would be, I mean, we've got to actually make a decision. But I think what would be helpful at some point when you have more clarity on things and can answer more of the questions that have been tossed your way today, is ask us to come back to a finance meeting and have a longer conversation or more detail as some of your next year unfolds with where things are at. I mean, literally all of these, where you're serving, what's working out and maybe what's not and stuff.
Yeah. I don't have a site in Mellon yet because the assisted living is already on board with me with doing meals. She needs to hire a cook. She hasn't been able to find one. Then it's their facility, less rent, less staffing for us. So I'm trying to find those efficiencies. So these are it's the same things that keep poking up. So, and there's just, with some of the businesses, there's some other things that some of the restaurants have to fix before I can get that approved. So it's just a few things and it's going to click.
I'm inclined to go ahead and make a motion to preliminarily approve this. I would like to maybe revisit it when we get more of the budget stuff there, but at this time, to make a motion to preliminarily approve it.
Ron will second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
And good luck. Next, under 7A, Northern Waters Library Systems.
Oh,
Um,
okay, well, we don't really have a choice in this one, so.
yeah, I was just saying, I move to approve.
I second.
Any discussion? All
I
in
just,
fa-
I'd just say with the stuff I've seen about libraries, I'm surprised they're not asking for more with some of the federal cuts in library services that may be coming in, so we'll take it while we got it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next, 7B, Northwest Regional Planning.
Again, we don't really have a choice in this one. Or do we want?
I'll make a
that one?
motion. I'd approve that.
Do we have a second? Do we have a motion? Is there a second?
I'll second it, but
Go ahead.
there's two different ones. Is that what I'm reading? That with the two letters?
The first one is the HHW levy. Or the second one is, and then the first one was, so there was two different ones. He's right.
Oh, yeah. I believe the second one actually, oh, that's the hazardous waste. So we did
That's-
get that.
Yeah, we already talked about hazardous waste.
Yeah.
All right, so the one's the hazardous waste and one's just the Northwest Regional Planning.
Yeah. So the
That's it.
first one is 11,294. I'll make a motion to approve that with that proposed levy inclusion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And then the hazardous waste, do you want?
Yeah, could we approve that?
Yeah, let's go down to that one then.
Well, I already approved the first one, so I'd take the second one with the hazardous waste with the Northwest Regional Planning. I'll approve that.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we'll go to updates, the treasurer report.
Ugh.
You gotta fly, huh?
All right, just for the record, we still do have a quorum. Okay. I'll have Liam run over and get that key from you. Okay, thanks. Nothing's changed. Tracy's including the interest rate still, and we won't know of an interest rate change until next month.
Okay. County investments?
That's what we're looking at right now. So there's really not much change.
Sales tax review then?
Sales tax, we just got the brand new ones yesterday. So it's too late for the packet, but it was 221,000. So we're like 23,000 over last year. I don't know whether that's inflation or more people or what.
Based off of the your unintended consequences in your updates,
Yes.
are we gonna see that now, starting now with the lack of sales tax on energy in the summer, or is that not starting until?
It started already.
It did, yeah, so, because it would have started July 1, so do we envision that I mean, it didn't look like Ashland County, based on the projection, is gonna lose that much, but,
No. No, but yeah, it's gonna hit the bigger counties,
right, okay.
like Milwaukee, Dane, Brown. But it is gonna affect us in the sense that our shared revenue is based on 20% of the sales tax, state sales tax. Or 1% of the 5% sales tax.
Yeah.
So if the state is taking less overall sales tax in, then shared revenue goes down.
Right.
Unless this legislature decides to backfill it. But right now, sales tax is looking good. I know July had a lot of people in town. August has a lot of people in town.
And this one's only through May, right? Or
Oh, the
this
what you have on there is May.
in May, but
221 is
Two
June.
21's through June. So
Yeah.
July, we would assume July is going to be high too, based off of what we
Yeah,
saw. around.
we're gonna make our 2 million. Well,
Perfect.
Administrator updates?
I included almost everything in the packet for you.
Scheduling next meeting?
I would like to have an earlier September meeting and possibly a later September meeting or very beginning of October. For the budget. The next meeting would cover all the big departments, HHS, sheriff, highway, land conservation we still have yet to do. HHS, their budget doesn't go in front of committee until next week, so that's why we're holding off. So if we could do something earlier and then something later.
When are you gonna have more numbers from the state on shared revenue and stuff?
September 15th. Where's my calendar?
So in early September one, we won't see that, but so the late September one, you'd want things pretty well firmed up then.
Right, because we have to publish, let's see, 23rd. We have to send it in by October 2nd. Because it has to be in the newspaper for 15 days. And the Daily Press only operates once a week. So we have to have it in a week early for them. So the 20th, well, actually, maybe October 9th. I'll clarify with, but we have, it's the first week in October, we have to have our publication to the newspaper. And that does not need to be exact. That just needs to be an estimate. So if we find we have a couple $100,000 deficit, we can fill that deficit with fund balance and then go back through the time and through October and get rid of that. And that's in fact what we did last year. But we need to show an estimate of how much we're going to spend and take in taxes. So that's why I'd like 2 September meetings, one to go over the next departments and then one at the end to go over the publication notice. And then we would have one in October for final approval before the county board gets it.
Do you want to set dates?
Yeah, that would be great. So could we do, I don't know, how does September 4th work for people? Well, actually, I can't get the packet out by September 11th. And then we'll do another one the 25th or October, yeah, or the 25th.
So if you have the shared revenue by then,
Yeah, we would have the share of revenue by the
and
25th.
enough time to get it in the packet so we can read it.
Right, so we could get it out by the 18th or 19th.
Okay.
So you would have at least a weekend to read it. Yeah. The 11th would go over the rest of the departments. And then the 25th would be go over the budget we sent to the press newspaper, which would be close to final, but not final. And then sometime before October 28th, we do the final version of the budget.
I'll just say as of right now, I will be able to make those 2 dates.
Well, then let's lock them in stone.
There's another meeting that has to be scheduled that if it were me that were scheduled, it would have been
Yeah.
2 months ago, but it's still not scheduled. That could be on one of those 2 dates.
Okay, well, Chairman Martig, please be prepared to make a quorum.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Ron will make a motion, we adjourn.
I know you don't need a second, but you got my second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries, we're adjourned.
Stop.